Everybody, can Baylor do it? The offense is making college football history. The entire team would like to follow suit, winning its first ever Big 12 championship and also getting to the last ever BCS National Championship game. Mark Rogers TV here to preview the Big 12 showdown on Saturday night with Oklahoma State. And let's not forget the Cowboys. They're trying to win the Big 12 as well. They're 9-1, hosting the Baylor Bears at 9-0, fourth in the BCS standings, just a smidge behind Ohio State. And the BCS analysts believe that if the Bears win out, they will pass the Buckeyes because of a better strength of schedule. And then they will need, of course, a miracle to happen with Alabama losing or Florida State to get to the BCS National Championship game. Baylor's not won any kind of championship outright since 1980, winning the old Southwest Conference crown, then getting to the Cotton Bowl to play, get this, Bear Bryant in Alabama. They lost that game against the Tide 30-2. They got the safety, but they lost it 30-2. Fast forward 14 years, and the Bears did win a share of the Southwest Conference Championship in 1994, a five-way tie at 4-3. Texas A&M was actually the best team in the conference. They went 7-0, but they had their issues with the NCAA, so Baylor had to share the crown 5 ways at 4-3. Back up to 2013, let's talk about this offense. It is prolific, averaging 61.2 points per game. That's number one all time. So if they can maintain something close to the pace they've had through 9 games, they will set an all-time NCAA record at this level at 61 points per game. Also, total offense, 685 yards per game. That would be an all-time record. So if they can maintain the pace against 3 much tougher defenses than they've played against the first 9, they will set records in terms of scoring offense and total offense. But it's about winning football games and winning championships. And Art Briles turns to quarterback Bryce to get the job done. 3,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 1 interception, 24 touchdowns, 1 pick, 10 rushing touchdowns. So he's accounted for 34 touchdowns. He's not a real big runner, but when they get in the red zone, he's looking for lanes when the field shrinks and he doesn't have the speed that can move the ball downfield and look for the chunk yardage. He looks for lanes to run, and he's rushed for 10 touchdowns. Big issue with the passing game is that they've lost Tevin Reese, one of their top targets. 33 receptions, 8 touchdowns. He's got a wrist injury he's lost for 2013. Levi Norwood's really going to have to step up and take his place and take some of that productivity. Also, Antoine Goodley, though, he's the number 1 target and will be the number 1 target at 48 receptions and 11 touchdowns. When we think Baylor, going back to RG3 and up to now, we think about passing offense. But actually, I believe the running game is better than the passing game. 9th in the land in rushing, starting with Lache Seastrunk, who's run for 888 yards and 11 touchdowns. You've got Shock Linwood, who's picked up the slack the past 2 weeks in Seastrunk's absence, and also a capable third guy in Glasgow Martin. So the deal with Seastrunk is he went down the first half against Oklahoma. Linwood played very well against the Sooners, and specifically last week in the 63-34 annihilation of Texas Tech and running for about 160 yards in that game. And again, Baylor doesn't lose a whole lot in going 3 deep with Glasgow Martin as well. Seastrunk is questionable for Saturday at Oklahoma State. Let's talk about the better side of the football. It might be the defense. Because think about this. Baylor rolled the first 7 games. They had little resistance. The toughest game was against Kansas State, at the time a 3-4 football team, and Baylor won it by 10 points. A tough football game against a decent Kansas State team, but really played nobody in the top 50 in the nation until Oklahoma in Waco on that Thursday night. And it took a long time for the offense to get going in that game. And really, they only got going because the defense got stop after stop after stop after stop. They led it 17-5 at half. The defense won that football game. They are 7th in the nation in scoring defense at 17.4 points per game, 323 yards given up per game. In today's football, that's an exceptional number. Of course, the schedule's been very light until recently. But they only gave up 12 points to Oklahoma and 34, a deceiving number against Texas Tech. Here are the playmakers. If you haven't seen Baylor play this season, I only saw the Oklahoma game. A lot of people are going to be checking them out for the first time against Oklahoma State. You've got junior linebacker Bryce Hager, who leads the team with 71 stops. Eddie Lackey, senior linebacker as well, 66 stops, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. You've got Sean Oakman, who's got 12 tackles for loss up front at defensive end. He's a sophomore. And also senior cornerback, one of the best in the nation, Dimitri Goodson, who has 2 picks and 11 passes defensed. Now let's talk about Oklahoma State. Interesting football team, because you would think Oklahoma State in playing Baylor, it would be all about a track meet and offense, but it's been the defense for the Cowboys. Let's talk about this defense. They're 14th in the country in scoring defense at 19 points per game. They have 26 takeaways, 19 interceptions, and 7 fumble recoveries. The standouts include a couple seniors in cornerback Justin Gilbert, who has 6 interceptions this season, including a pick 6 in a 38-13 win against Texas last week. Also, senior linebacker Caleb Levy, 76 total stops. That leads the Cowboys. 11 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 4 interceptions. You talk about filling up the stat sheet. Caleb Levy, 76 tackles to lead the team, 11 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 4 picks. And also senior defensive end Tyler Johnson, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. So again, it's been the defense, specifically in the biggest win of the season last week against Texas, winning 38-13, shutting down the Longhorns in that game to get Oklahoma State in a place where they can win the Big 12 championship by winning this game and finishing the season out against Oklahoma. The reason we're spotlighting the defense first for Oklahoma State, we're not talking about the Brandon Weeden, Justin Blackman, Des Bryant, Kendall Hunter Cowboys. We're talking about a defense first team. They're scoring a lot of points, but mostly set up by the defense. The passing game's been pedestrian at best, 53% from Clint Chelf. He's only started the last 4 games, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. Again, in today's football, that ratio is not exceptional. 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, 53%. He's got to hit more targets in the passing game against Baylor for Oklahoma State to keep pace. Desmond Rowland leads the rushing attack at 565 on the ground. Jeremy Smith at 329. These guys have run for 21 touchdowns. So again, that spotlights the rushing game versus the passing game and how the Cowboys have been successful in 2013, which has been much different than in the recent past under Mike Gundy. The concerning point here is that the Baylor rush defense is very formidable. The Cowboys are producing touchdowns in the running game, but only averaging about 4 yards per attempt. And in college football, 4 yards per carry, especially considering Oklahoma State's weak schedule, is not going to get it. We expect that number to go down against Baylor. In the passing game, you've got a questionable Josh Stewart who's banged up with a foot injury. He's caught 40 this year with 2 touchdowns. Tracy Moore's the number 1 target at 37 receptions, 469 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And Hawan Seals is going to also have to step in, much like Levi Norwood on the Baylor side for Tevin Reese. Hawan Seals, with some injuries in the Oklahoma State receiving corps, will need to make some plays in the passing game. Look at the kickers here. They're both having some issues. Ben Grogan of Oklahoma State is just 9 of 15. He's missed 6 kicks. Aaron Jones just 8 of 13 for Baylor. So if it comes down to a last-second field goal, you might rather be the team defending the field goal than the team kicking the field goal. Again, Grogan 9 of 15 and Jones 8 of 13 for Baylor. Issues in the passing game for Oklahoma State. Issues running the football for big chunk yardage. Again, 4 yards per carry is not a good sign for Oklahoma State in generating points and in keeping the football away from Baylor. We like the Bears. We were looking for a spot to pick an upset, but I just don't see it happening. The Baylor Bears are a much better football team than Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's at home. They obviously are looking to pull the upset to win a Big 12 championship. We don't see it, though. Baylor too explosive on offense. They've got it all working right now, and this is a very underrated defense. Not a top 7 defense, but a top 20 defense that really put it on Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. Take Baylor 45-30 in this game over Oklahoma State. Now we would love to hear from you. Your take on the Cowboys and the Bears for the Big 12 championship lead. Right here on Mark Rogers TV.